All right, guys, we are getting close to wrapping up, hopefully soon, Ryland's 2+2 right-hand drive, twin turbo. All right, we are back with Devon's Q50, and this is the one we initially did the Z1 turbos on, and we also did the Interchiller on. All right, we are back with Devon's Q50, and this time we've gone ahead and added stage 2 AMS injectors, and this is the one we initially did the Z1 turbos on, and we also did the Interchiller on. So take a look at this. This is how cold this bad boy is getting. Take a look at how cold this stuff is actually getting. We are getting nice buildup of frost on the intercooler and on all the piping. So pretty cold. Taking a look at our EcuTech charge air coolant temps, 27 degrees Fahrenheit. That's below freezing. You can see why this system works so well. Your air is going right through this. It is going to make a ton of power, and it's going to do it way safer than your traditional air to water heat exchangers are without this setup. So let's see what this bad boy does. We added a Fuelit secondary low pressure fuel pump setup to this, and we also added an AMS low pressure fuel pump. We thought it had an AMS low pressure fuel pump in it, but it didn't, and customer thought wrong. So we've done that, and so we'll see what we can get out of this bad boy. I mean, it should easily make 700. I don't know if we'll go that crazy, but we'll go until I feel comfortable. Alrighty guys, we've wrapped up with Devon's on the dyno, and of course our limiting factor is always going to be the fuel system. So I figured we could maybe get a little bit more out of this thing, but it only has the stage 2 AMS high pressure fuel pump, which really is only good for about 600 wheel. I think off memory it's like a 325 liter per hour high pressure pump. So we are maxed out. For shits and giggles, I wanted to see how much more we could get. It didn't really like it. We got it up to like 670 wheel, but we're definitely not going to leave it there. We're going to leave it towards right around 600 wheel, 620 wheels as much as we're going to do with that stage 2 AMS high pressure fuel pump. So stage 3, definitely be able to get more out of this bad boy. Again, we might be limited again because of the stage 2 fuel injectors that we've got in there, but nonetheless, we're making about another 100 wheel. Definitely a lot better. It's definitely going to be a lot safer, and in combination with that interchiller, this thing really should be super reliable in super hot weather with ethanol and an interchiller on that thing. So yeah, happy with the results. It's ready to go back to Devon. All right, guys, we are getting close to wrapping up, hopefully soon, Ryland's 2+2 right-hand drive, twin turbo. So brand new motor, motor that he provided us, but it's got all the fixings on it. So Gen 2 JWTs on this bad boy, upgraded exhaust manifolds. We're actually plumbing and installing the Polar Engineering top feed fuel rails, and that's going with a set of ID 1300s on this bad boy. We got the clear timing covers on, we've got JWT 500 cams, we've got our BDE exhaust cam gears and intake gears, ATI damper, we're getting our intercooler piping and polished installed, and hopefully we'll get the intake manifold on. We didn't put the intake manifold on before we got the motor in, just because we were thinking we might get the Polar Engineering throttle bodies, but we're still waiting on those. So because of time and restrictions and all that, we're just going to go ahead and get this thing running on the stock throttles for now. So it's coming together, it's coming to piece here, and it's looking really good. So it's just all about the little details, making sure all the fitment's good. You know, perfect example, guys, again, when you're installing our inlet piping, you know, this is the late style suction hose. You want to cut this back so that you're not up against our inlet pipe. So by cutting this hose back, you can get it to go on further and keep it away from the inlet pipe. So just a little trick tip there. He's got a set of ash massives that we're going to be reusing. We'll get our engine oil cooler. We're getting that from Z1, and we'll continue to get it together. So this is the one that's got our twin disc. It's got a brand new 5-speed from Nissan in here. That's all in. It's going to have our downpipes and our 3 to 2.5 inch test pipes matching up with his B&B catback. So hopefully we'll get this thing a little closer, and then we'll be able to get all our Haltech stuff installed. So looking forward to getting this bad boy up and running. All right, guys, we're getting ready to almost wrap up with Ryland's 2+2 right-hand drive. This thing was already a twin turbo, of course, so it was an automatic. It had been converted to a manual already. We've gone ahead and installed a brand new 98 spec transmission. We've done our exhaust basically from the turbos up into the mid pipes. We've got a B&B catback that he's had on there already. We're gonna retain that bad boy. And you know, if you look underneath here, because it's a right-hand drive, what we did is we moved our oil pressure sending unit over to the right-hand side on a factory JDM twin turbo. It's on the left-hand side off the factory oil feed line. We're not using the factory oil feed lines anymore. We're using our oil feed lines because we're running JWT GTX turbos. So we've put a Mishimoto sandwich adapter on this bad boy. We've got the AEM oil pressure sensor, and we've got also the factory one. So we want to make that factory gauge cluster work. We've got this bad boy there, and of course it's a really tight fit. Now we've got the steering linkage, which is right here, runs right alongside the downpipe. We've got just enough clearance. We've got just enough clearance on our oil pressure sending unit with our starter and with our steering knuckle. So you can see how everything is really, really close over here. So we're just waiting for our oil cooler to get here. We can start plumbing all that. Just about all the piping is in, and we're gonna be putting this one with the stock throttle bodies on it for now. But we've got our advanced alternator that we were waiting on from Japan. That's all in, and now we're just waiting on our Haltech goodies. So once that stuff comes in from being on back order, we can get this thing running, which will be awesome. So we'll break in the motor first, and then we'll do some tuning on 91. So this car will be running on 94 up in Canada, and we'll get it tuned for 91. Sometimes the Canadian 94 isn't very good. I've seen that 91 octane in Canada can actually be better than the 94, believe it or not. So, but yeah, let's bring this bad boy down and let's take a look at what we got at the engine bay. All right, we've got all our piping in. Ryland's gone with our polished intercooler piping and inlet piping. And again, stock throttles. We got our oil cap, looks really good with the black on the cherry red look for the valve covers. Balance tube's been chromed, and goes really well with all the polished bits and the black. So what I've been working on as of late is plumbing the fuel system, kind of retaining that factory look. It's gonna be run on E85, so it's gonna have flex fuel with the Haltech commanding all that stuff. This car does not have AC. Fan trail is going to be going back on this thing, and we're going to be putting in a smaller battery right over here and mounting some of our Haltech stuff like our 4-bar Motorsport sensor and also our dual wideband controller. You can see we've got the Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator here in gauge, and going to make it easy to check, and if you need, you can adjust it really easily as well. So we're gonna finish up wrapping up the plumbing for all that, and once we get that, this thing's gonna be a go. All right, we've got our new intercoolers that have been out, guys, for a couple of months now with our divided inlets. And the other thing we wanted to work on, and we are finally getting to that stage, getting a little bit more time to do that, is we've got a 3D prototype of our duct. So we've kind of designed this around the J-spec for now. And you know, it's our first, again, a prototype to see how the fitment is. And you can see we're basically gonna be using all of that space to get and channel all the air to go in through the entire core. So this is much awaited, anticipated. This makes a dramatic difference of actually funneling and pushing all that air right through that core. Because when you don't run a duct like this, you're hoping that whatever airflow gets through, you want it to pass through the core, but that's not necessarily the case. You know, air is going to go the path of least resistance, and so it can just totally escape, and you're not going to get as much air. You'll get some through the core, but nothing like when you have a proper ducted setup like this. So this is definitely going to help scoop and channel that air right through our core. So be on the lookout for these guys. Probably is going to be anytime soon, because we got to go through fitment, trial and errors, and then determining what we're going to make them out of, all that good stuff. So, but there you have it. Really cool looking duct for our intercooler. All right, guys, it is that time finally. 99.9% there. Our next step now is to get oil pressure. So I've pulled the coil packs out. I've put some Marvel mist oil down the cylinders to help keep those rings and that bore lubricated. I've got our charger just to maintain battery charge. I've got it set for the lithium, just a really slow charge, and got the plugs out, of course, again, because it's going to be easier for the engine to crank, build that oil pressure up way quicker, way faster. So let's go ahead, let's do that. We've got some AMSOIL break-in oil in there, and let's go ahead and we're gonna crank, build some oil pressure. Beautiful, we got some good oil pressure, and now we can crank this bad boy up, knowing we've got oil pressure, everything's lubricated, and make sure we got our base tune all set up, and we're gonna fire it up. All right, now that we've got oil pressure, we can go ahead and put our spark plugs in. We are using the NGK Iridiums, the IX brand or line. It's the BKR8 EIX. This is our go-to. We've been using these since early 2000s. So when we found out that the factory EFR 6B11Bs were way too hot for what we were doing back then, these are the best plugs, in my opinion, to run these bad boys. They come already pre-gapped, usually about 32 thousandths. I don't see a need to gap them down any tighter, especially with the factory coils, or even if you're planning on doing the Hitachi R35 coils, really don't need to gap these down. So we'll get these in, button it all up, and we can fire it up. right, guys, the day has finally come. We can put the cherry on top of this bad boy. So Ryland's Z32 is 2+2 twin turbo, right-hand drive. We've got it all dialed in. The list is so big to go through as far as what this thing's got done. So I'm just gonna go off the top of my head. It's got the upgraded exhaust manifolds, our 3-inch downpipes, 3 to 2.5 inch test pipes, and we've got basically the JWT Gen 2 Sport 700s on this bad boy. So they're the 2860s Gen 2 version. Our intercooler piping, our inlet piping, we've got our dual dummy MAF setup on it. This one's running blow-off valves. It's not really gonna matter for power. We got the B intake and the B exhaust gears, which we have adjusted, and we're running the Polar throttle bodies. Our first time running these bad boys. We got 2 cars here, including this one that we've just installed these, and we've also got Polar's basically top feed fuel rail, which sits underneath the intake manifold for a nice, really clean sleeper look to it. And really, that's the gist of it. It's got our brand new twin disc clutch in this thing, and thankfully it does, even though our High 5 can handle this. But we're basically making 757 foot-pounds of torque on this bad boy. So far so good. Not that I would recommend running it, because we're making about 825 wheel, and the VGs are prone to having issues right around this power level. So this is where we're gonna stop and turn it down a little bit. So E85 on our Haltech Elite 2500, got it dialed in. We made as much as 35 pounds of boost on this bad boy, and making a whopping 825 wheel, almost 770 foot-pounds of torque. So the other thing that we wanted to do with a build like this was go ahead and throw our intercoolers on it to test and see what differences we had from the ash specs that are on the car to ours. And so we have a little bit of data for that. I just kind of wrote it on a chicken scratch for video purposes. But overall, at about 4,000 RPM, when we were breaking down the air intake air temps, we were showing 88 degrees with the brand new Specialty Z intercoolers. The ash specs were 93 degrees. At 5,000, we were getting a bigger increase in temperatures on both of them, but the spread was larger. The breakdown essentially, guys, excuse me for my little notes, at 5,000 on the Specialty Z intercoolers, 89 degrees. At that same RPM, the ash were at 95 degrees. So 6-degree difference, nothing huge. Previous to that was 5. Here's when it starts to get a bigger spread. 6,000 RPM, Specialty Z intercoolers are at 91 degrees intake air temp. The ash spec massives are 99 degrees, so that's 8-degree spread. And finally, when we get up to about 7,000 RPM, 98 degrees on the Specialty Z intercoolers, and the ash are 107 degrees. So overall, ours are doing a much better job. 9 degrees is a decent amount, so we're keeping it under 100 degrees, which is pretty good, and I'm really happy with that. So, especially for a core size that's roughly the same. Ours are a bit taller, and the biggest difference, of course, is ours have the divider on the inlet side of the intercooler. So let's pull up the dyno charts, we'll talk about them, and then we'll pull up the dyno charts for the intercoolers themselves. All right, guys, so this is where we ended up. Red was our highest that we did, and we still have more duty cycle to go on the boost controller. And what you can see here is we're getting a little bit of breakup. It's just running a split fire coil pack. Not a huge fan of the split fires, but surprising nonetheless that they were able to hang in there even at 30 pounds of boost. So we made 825 wheel, 757 foot-pounds of torque. Our twin disc is able to handle that on the dyno, no problem. And what we're gonna leave it at more comfortably if he wants to run the higher power levels, of course, he has the ability to adjust all his boost settings with the rotary dial that we put in the ashtray area. So really simple, but 768 wheel and 654 foot-pounds of torque. You can see the boost difference, 36 pounds of boost on our red run, lots of boost. You can see the spread here. Look at that chunk. So definitely made a good amount more, but we'll leave it around 29, 30 pounds of boost as our safe max. If he wants that kill map, you can have it, right? I don't know if you'd need any more power than that. So nonetheless, let's go ahead. We'll pull up the comparisons of our Specialty Z intercooler and the Ashbeck Massives. All right, so for comparison's sake, we left it on the 29, 30 pound boost duty cycle for power. Blue is the run that we did on the Ashbeck Massives. That was the data breakdown as far as the intake air temps go between both intercoolers. A majority of our power that we gained is right around in that area of 4,500 to about 6,500 or so. So a little drop in power here could be just a difference in the run to run, but nonetheless, the intercoolers did their job. They brought the intake air temps down, and we're also making about 20 foot-pounds of torque more and 20 wheel horsepower without having to do anything. So it goes to show you, that little bit of intake air temperature can make a decent difference, especially if you're making pass after pass. So intercoolers have the ability to split the airflow between the core much better. So really happy with the results, still efficient at these really high boost pressure levels and power levels.